Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for being here Thursday, December 11th. And right now, we're talking about the Jaguars' current weaknesses. We've talked a lot about all the great things the Jaguars are doing over this 4-game winning streak. Just the play that they have had overall since the bye week in a lot of ways has been massively improved, but especially over the 4-game win streak. 3 out of the last 4 games, they've really dominated in those games. So there's been a lot of good to talk about, and we've been doing that. But we haven't talked as much about the areas the Jaguars might struggle a little bit. And so we're going to do that here today. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. You can also check out GenJag.com, pick up some new Duval gear, help support the channel look good while doing it. So the number one issue that the Jaguars have currently, in my opinion, is penalties. The penalty situation, I think it's improved a little bit. If you look like last 6 games versus the first however many games before the bye, I think that it's improved a little, but there's still games where there's way too many penalties. I think the average is still too high. I think they still, if they don't lead the league in penalties, they're definitely close to the top. I do think that they lead the league, though. It's too high. It's too much, and it's gotten better. I think they've gotten better at overcoming those penalties overall as well, especially on the offensive side of the ball with their improved consistency in the passing game. But penalties, if you're playing one of these teams in a make-or-break game, one of these really good teams, penalties can absolutely, they can impact the game in a negative way, really, to the point where they could be a primary driver for not being able to execute and ultimately losing a football game. And you can't have that. So they got to continue to work on the penalties. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be held to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 penalties a game. But if you can be somewhere in that range of 5 to 7, 5 to 8 even, I think that puts you in a much better spot than when you are going double digits. And the Jaguars have gone double digits way too often. Looking at the Jaguars running game, overall, it's a good running game. And you look at success rate and different things like that, the numbers aren't amazing. I do think the last couple weeks they have been in a bit of a slump in the run game. I also think against the Titans, they just knew they could throw the ball, and they did. And in games where you're up by a lot, the running game kind of might slow down a little bit because teams know you're just turning to the run a little bit more later in the game. I think the Jaguars have done a good job running the ball this year. They're averaging over 120 yards a game on the ground. I think if they had games where they didn't just say, hey, we're going to be able to throw the ball over the middle in this game, or we're going to be able to throw the ball down the field, that number could be a little bit higher. But it has been in a slump the last 2 weeks against the Titans, who they don't have a great run defense, but they do have talent up front. They do have, Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Cedric Gray's been making a ton of plays. And so they have the physicality to be a good run defense. They hadn't been a consistently good run defense, but they slowed the Jaguars down. The Jaguars still had over 100 yards on the ground, but it wasn't particularly consistent. You had some really nice runs by Travis Etienne. But the Colts, they do have one of the better run defenses in football. The Colts, you look at what they've averaged as a run defense this year. They've been one of the toughest teams to run on. They're giving up 3.8 yards per carry on the ground on the year, less than 100 yards a game. So yeah, I think it's very fair to say that the Colts have a good run defense, but you're going to face some good run defenses down the stretch and in the playoffs. If you make it there, if you handle your business and get to the playoffs, you're going to face really good run defenses. And it would help to be able to find a little bit more consistency over these next 4 weeks on the ground to get you going in that direction in the playoffs where you can really be a balanced team. And they've been able to have some balance. And even when the run game's not working, the pass game has been working pretty consistently lately. So it's not like a weakness necessarily, but not a strength right now, I would say. Especially the last two games, it's been in a little bit of a slump. I would say inconsistency in general can be a problem. We haven't seen a lot of that lately. And you look at a lot of people are like, well, the Jags, they have these games where they let opposing teams stick around. And that's absolutely true. They do. But at the same time, like the NFL is a league of parity. Pretty much every team has a bad loss on their resume. Pretty much every team has let opposing teams that shouldn't be in the game stick around. So I don't really think that that's a major weakness. And I think the inconsistency in general is they've been one of the most consistent teams in the league over the last month. They beat down the Chargers 35-6. Yes, you had that game in there with the Cardinals where it was a little wonky. You beat down the Titans 25-3. You beat down the Colts 36-19. They're playing consistent football right now. You have seen inconsistency at times throughout the year to where maybe there's been inconsistency in a lot of different spots on the team. But right now you don't see it much. But maybe it could be a weakness in a specific game. I think a lot of the times that you have seen inconsistencies throughout a game or a game where it's just like certain things are plaguing the Jaguars and it's not always the same thing, it's on the road. It's away from Jacksonville. They have been much less consistent as a team on road trips than they have in Jacksonville. Away from Jacksonville, they are 4-3 because they lost to the Rams. Obviously, it was a home game in London, right? But they lost to the Rams over the pond, and so they're 5-1 at home, 4-3 away from Jacksonville. 4-3 is a good road record, right? But if we're trying to poke holes in what the Jaguars are right now, they've had some silly games on the road, some really bad performances on the road, even in wins. But you look at the game against the Rams, I mean, that was an atrocious performance. They just could not figure it out. They couldn't get out of their own way. They did move the ball a lot in that game, but outside of that, there's nothing much you could point to that was actually a positive. Parker Washington's touchdown return got negated. It shouldn't have. That was a positive in my book, but outside of that, there wasn't much. And then you have the debacle in Houston, where the Jaguars completely fall apart against the Texans. Then you have the game in Arizona, where the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, they let Arizona hang around. A lot of that was due to Trevor Lawrence's turnovers, right? Las Vegas have to win in overtime. Devon Hamilton batted pass at the line away from losing that game in overtime to the Las Vegas Raiders. So on the road, there's been wonkiness, which to me highlights the fact that the Jaguars need to be gunning for one of the top 2 seeds. Absolutely. That will help them tremendously to be at home for playoff games. Again, you're still just trying to make the playoffs. You're still just trying to win your division. But take it 1 week at a time. But if you're able to handle your business, if you're able to win the 3 games you should remaining on your schedule and also beat the Broncos and potentially jump the Broncos and get a top 2 seed, that sets you up really well because you're a lot better in Jacksonville right now than you are away from Jacksonville. And that's not to say they can't beat teams away from Jacks. They've done it. They beat the 49ers in San Francisco, right? We talked about all those other close games they've had. You go beat the Broncos in Denver, that can instill some confidence in you as a road warrior. Outside of that stuff, they're throwing the ball really well. The success rate has gone way up. Yes, there was 17 of 30 this past game doesn't look good, but you had 3 drops, all due to the weather, the rain. You had Trevor Lawrence with 1 or 2 missed throws, getting into the flow of things. They're attacking down the field. They're catching the ball. They have complementary pieces. Brenton Strange, he's so physical and tough, but also a really good receiver that can execute in a lot of different roles as a receiver. Jacoby Myers, the chain mover, the guy who can work the middle of the field. Tim Patrick, a bit of a utility piece. Parker Washington, when he gets back, can do a lot of different things for you. And Brian Thomas Jr., your field stretcher on the outside. They have a lot going on in that passing game. The pass protection has improved over the last month as well. You're playing complementary football. When your defense is forcing turnovers, giving you short fields, you're capitalizing on it. You're rushing the passer. You're covering better. You're hitting. You're tough. Special teams is doing good. There's not a lot of holes to poke in the way the Jaguars are playing right now, but they've got to continue that. They've got to keep this momentum going throughout the next 4 games and into the playoffs. And if they do that, they probably will end up being able to play at least one home playoff game, hopefully 2. You never know, maybe even 3. We've looked at the schedules for the Broncos and the Patriots. I think the Broncos are more likely to be able to get jumped by the Jaguars just because they control the ability to go take them down in Denver, and the Broncos have a tougher schedule than the Patriots, but the Patriots play the Bills this weekend. If the Patriots lose to the Bills, we can talk about that one too. That would put them with 3 losses. So everything's in front of the Jags right now. They're playing good football, but we did need to talk about the weaknesses, the little cracks in the armor that are there right now. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe, and y'all have a good one.